Chapter 14 of Bunny Brown and His Sister Sue at Christmas Tree Cove by Laura Lee Hope. This Librivox Recording is in the public domain. Recording by Sean McGaughey
and Sarah. Chapter 14, In the Dark. Miss Brown, who had been looking at the beautiful view of Christmas Tree Cove from the window of the bungalow dining room, turned to Miss Madden when Sue's cry rang out. "Something has happened to those children!" exclaimed Miss Brown. "Where are they calling from? I must go to them." "That cry sounded as if it came from the pantry," answered the other woman. "It's just through that door." And she pointed. As Mother Brown started for the place, Sue called again. "Please come quick. Bunny's in and he can't get out." "What can't Bunny get out of?" said Miss Brown. Mother Brown pushed open the door leading into the pantry, and there she saw a strange sight. Sue was standing beside Bunny and trying to pull him out of the barrel, which he was doubled up in a funny way, almost as a clown in a circus sometimes doubles himself up to slide through a keg. Only Bunny was not sliding through. He was doubled up and stuck in the barrel. "He's in," explained Sue, "and I can't get him out." "I can't get out either," added Bunny. "I'm stuck." "Are you hurt?" asked his mother. "No, not exactly," he replied, "except it sort of pinches me." Miss Brown did not stop to ask how it happened. She took hold of Bunny on one side, and Miss Madam took hold of him on the other. Then, while Sue helped them hold down on the barrel, they pulled up on the little fellow and soon had him out. Luckily, the edge of the barrel was smooth and without any nails, so that Bunny was not scratched, nor were his clothes torn. "Now tell me about it," said his mother, as she set him on the floor and led him and Sue out of the small pantry.
"Well, They found that all the things had been brought up from the boat and that Captain Ross had sailed away again. The bungalow was furnished, and Mrs. Brown had only to bring such things as knives and forks for the table, linen for the beds, and the clothes they were to wear. A grocer and a butcher had called while Bunny and Sue were at the Madden cottage, and now supper was being prepared by Bunker Blue and Uncle Tad, each of them being almost as good a cook as was Mrs. Brown. Mrs. Brown and her husband were busy making up the beds for the night, and as Bunny and Sue came racing in, almost as hungry as though they had not been given a lunch by Mrs. Madden, their mother called to them, "Get washed for supper now, children." A little later they were sitting down to their first meal in the bungalow at Christmas Tree Cove. "Do you think you are going to like it here?" asked Daddy Brown. "It's dandy!" exclaimed Bunny, being careful not to talk with his mouth too full of bread and butter. "And Jimmy is a nice boy." "I like Rose, too," said Sue. After supper the children ran over to the cottage to play again, and before bedtime they walked along the sandy beach with their father and mother. But pretty soon it was noticed that Bunny and Sue were not saying much, and their walk was becoming slow. "Time for little sailors to turn in," said Mother Brown, and soon Bunny and Sue were slumbering in the little white beds in the bungalow.
The rest of the family, except Bunker Blue, sat up rather late, talking over the events of the past few days. They'd enjoyed the trip to Christmas Tree Cove, all except the storm. "I know we'll have a lovely summer," said Miss Brown, as she and her husband went to bed. When they were passing Bunny's room, a dog barked in the distance. The little fellow seemed to hear it, for he sat up in bed and cried, There he is! There's the dog that has your ring, Mother. I'm going to get it." "He's talking in his sleep again," whispered Mr. Brown. "Yes," agreed his wife in a low voice. "The loss of the pocketbook seems to get on his mind." "Go to sleep, Bunny," she murmured to him, going into his room and pressing his head down on the pillow. Then he turned over and went off to slumberland again. The next day and the many that followed were full of joy for Bunny Brown and Sister Sue. They played with Rose and Jimmy. They waded in the water, they sailed little boats, and they made houses in the sand. Often, as they sat on the beach, Bunny would look back toward the thick green clumps of evergreen trees which gave the place its name. "Couldn't we go and take a walk in them?" he asked Jimmy one day. "Yes," was the answer. "Only you want to be careful." "Why?" asked Bunny. "'Cause the woods are awful thick. You can't see your way very well, and once Rose and I got lost." "Oh, we wouldn't go in very far," said Bunny. "Some day I'm going into those woods." 2 or 3 days after that, when he and Sue had played in the sand until they were tired, Bunny said, "Let's go into the woods." "All right," agreed Sue. "Shall we get Jimmy and Rose?" "No, let's go by ourselves," said her brother. "I want to see if we can find our way all by ourselves." And so, not telling their mother or father or Uncle Tad or Bunker Blue anything about it, off the 2 children started. It was pleasant, shady, and cool in the evergreen woods of Christmas Tree Cove. On the ground were brown pine needles, and the shorter ones from spruces and the hemlocks. Here and there the sun shone down through the thick branches, but not too much. It was like being in a green bower.
On and on wandered Bunny and Sue, thinking what a nice place it was. They found pine cones and odd stones with here and there a bright flower. All of a sudden, Sue looked around. "Bunny, it's getting dark," she said. "I can't see the sun any more. I guess it's night, and we'd better go back home." "I don't believe it's night," said the little boy. "I guess the trees are so thick we can't see the sun. But we can go home. I'm getting hungry anyhow. Come on." They turned, about to go back, and walked on for some time. Sue took hold of Bunny's hand. "It's getting terrible dark," she said. "Where's home, Bunny?" The little boy looked around. I guess it isn't far," he said. "But it's dark, Sue. I wish I had a flashlight. Next time I'm going to bring one. But we'll be home soon." However, they were not. It rapidly grew darker, and at last Bunny Brown knew what had happened. "We're lost, and it's going to be a dark night," he said, holding more tightly to Sue's hand. "We're lost in the Christmas trees," he added, and his sister gave a little cry and held tightly to him.
End of chapter 14.